I'm gonna try to pull up a video, so just kind of ignore what is happening right now. Hey, Jack, how are you?
Terrific.
Excellent.
I put peace in this movement. I am so happy, by the way, that there are so many wonderful experts on the art of dying, and so many different coming from
Okay, everyone, I think we're almost ready. There are 13 on Zoom. Let me check YouTube. Once you put your mic on, she'll be able to. And hey, Chris, is the view for steep gallery view? Lori, she texted me and said she was out of town and to please let you know that she wasn't going to be able to make it because she and her son were driving back from somewhere. She's like, I thought I would be there, but I'm not. And I was just kind of like, why would she text me and let me know that? Like, if you come, you come. You don't have to text me. But now I know why. See, there's always more to the story that we don't know. You know? Do you want a treat? Okay. We can start setting you up that way if you want.
But it might be muted. Now you can talk. Okay, it's always something new every time. Thank you very much. That's why I get paid the big. That's why you get paid. Yeah.
You and me both, Chris.
Meat makes three.
True.
All right. Hey, Susan Potter. I see you. Hey, everybody online. Welcome everybody in here. What time is? Yeah. Sorry, we had a few little hiccups, but I like this is the Die Hard group. That's the new name for this class. The Die Hard, Die Soft, Die Hard. All righty. So, anybody here for the first time? I know there were people who weren't here last week, but is this your very first time in discovering Buddhism? Just raise your hand, or anybody chatting or something.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you can put it in the chat. If you're on Zoom, you can just wave.
Wave your hand. Okay.
Or raise your hand.
Okay. Oh, well, welcome. So this is this whole module called Discovering Buddhism, and you can kind of come in anywhere. As I was explaining last week, one of the things I love about Tibetan Buddhism is it's kind of like those accordion files. You can like, oh, okay, here's these Four Noble Truths, or you can like open it up and like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's kind of how you come into this course. And this particular module in the Discovering Buddhism course is on death and rebirth. So last week we just started that conversation. And what stood out? What are some things, little sound bites that we can share or put in chat so he gets an idea? Tell me your name. Adam, we can give Adam just a few sound bites of what we were talking about last week, and I'll say them here so you don't have to pass around the mic if they're short. It's a pop quiz, guys. Yeah.
I think just kind of what stood out. I don't know if everyone felt this way, but the main thing for me was
I thought it would be better for online presence.
The main thing for me was just kind of, it felt like the first time was like how death even made us feel. Like when we got in groups, like some people kind of seemed like it was heavier for them. Some people seemed like it was lighter. Some people seemed more open to a lot of it, just kind of gauging where we were at with the topic in general.
That's a good reminder to me. Yeah, it helps me jog my memory. So we started by listing everybody kind of thinking about what your goals are for you personally for this class, what our goals are for our own dying process, and what gets in the way of that. And so some of the things that get in the way for us right now, thinking about it, are our fear, feeling that we're wanting to gain more confidence, knowledge of the whole dying process, that these things would help us overcome these obstacles. Anything else? People also wanted to know how to help others, how to talk about it with others. And again, to me, then it's really important for each of us to identify our own obstacles, because they're going to be different for everybody. And then what hopefully this class will give you are some things that will reduce those obstacles, so that, you know, the fear goes down, the comfort level goes up, familiarity goes up. That's the whole reason why we do this meditation that will start next week on the death dissolution states. And so what drew me to Buddhism was that I was exactly looking for something that really carefully outlined the dying process and made it something, you know, like it was just a normal part of the meditation. Now we're going to meditate on this because everybody's going to go through it and this is what's going to happen. We also talked about how, we talked a lot about the continuity of mind. And so that our mind streams in this life, we can probably identify some of our earlier memories and then some things along the way, and here we are. But from a Buddhist perspective, there's been no beginning of that. So we talked a little bit about trying to trace the beginnings of other things. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about is built on that understanding of the continuity of mind. And we talked about how sometimes I don't want to assume that everybody believes in reincarnation, but I also want to throw out things, and we'll talk more about this later, but Robert Thurman has, and actually if anybody came to see Rabina, she may have been talking about that, because I love it when she will address questions about this whole topic of continuity of mind, and she'll say, just throw them at me, throw me your arguments, and people will say, well, what are some of them? There can't be, you can't just continue. Basically people are believing in nothing, that when I die, there's nothing. And so that gets challenged a lot intellectually. If you can challenge, there's nothing, this will go a long way into helping you prepare for that, for what comes next. Because if nothing can be discovered, how come no one has discovered it? You have to get more concrete than there's just nothing. Does nothing exist? It's kind of like the whole concept of zero. Does zero exist, or is zero this potent sea between things? So anyway, we're going to talk about all these things. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but let's start by setting our motivation. So we also talked about this, how everything starts with motivation or a wish or intention. If I was going to walk to New Orleans, which is where I'm from, I would have to refresh that motivation about every hour to keep myself going. And if I had a strong motivation and reason to keep on walking, that would really help me. There's this wonderful story about this 100-year-old woman who walked across the United States because she wanted to promote voting rights. There's a documentary about it. It's an amazing story. And she just set off from California and walked all the way across the country at 100 years old. And so she had this very strong motivation. And so the whole point of this story is that refreshing and understanding our motivations and then refreshing them along the way will benefit us, and then everybody else who benefits from our actions. So think about your intention for being here tonight and participating, whether it's to gain more knowledge, to have more peace of mind. Start with something small, and then think about how that, if you can accomplish that, even a small motivation like that, calming your mind, having more knowledge, how this might benefit those around you. And then try to increase your motivation so that if you are able to reduce the obstacles that we have thought of that come between us, if you were able to reduce those, how would that impact your life, your mind, those around you? And if you had the intention to become enlightened, then every action, every moment can be part of that process. So increase your intention as much as you possibly can. Then I'm going to ask Linda to read the four immeasurables. You can either meditate as she's reading them or read them along with us.
And if you're in the Gampa, in the Gold Prayer Book, they're on page 34 and 35. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends or hatred for enemies.
So then even saying some prayer like that is meant to help our mind become the same thing as the prayer. So we're not praying that some external thing causes that to happen. We are trying to merge our mind in that prayer so that they become the same thing, so that we are holding those wishes all the time in our life. So check your meditation posture. Make sure that the most important thing is that your spine is as straight as possible. So if you have your feet on the floor or if you're sitting, try to make sure your arms are out away from your body so your breathing doesn't collapse, your arms don't collapse into you. Tuck your chin just a little bit so that your spine is elongated. You can leave your eyes open just a little bit to let some light in, to keep you alert, or closed, whichever you prefer. The tongue at the back of your teeth to relax your jaw. And put all of your awareness on the sensation of air coming in and out of your nostrils. And you can count from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, with each full inhalation, exhalation being 1. And as you do this, just watch your mind as it wanders and you gently bring it back. And sometimes we can notice as the thought starts to rise up, and as we place our awareness on, oh, that's a thought, it'll often settle back down. It's almost these waves of thoughts, and then this rest in between them. If we can expand that space between them, our mind gets a little peace. So we'll do this for about 5 minutes. And during this last minute, as you exhale, try to just release all the tension, thoughts, stress from the day, discomfort. With each inhale, try to infuse yourself with pure, crystal, enlightened light. Can you bring up the PowerPoint? Okay. Yeah. So in Tibetan Buddhism, there's this, it's kind of traditional to meditate on the benefits of something and the disadvantages of the opposite. So I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint that shows that for this topic. I remember in the beginning, I used to think it was so kind of like obvious. Why was I going to have to meditate on this? So let's see, it might be the next slide. But actually, when I started doing it, it's kind of like, your right brain and your left brain are fighting with each other. So I do a lot of creative writing. And I remember a big turning point for me was when I read this book on the how to write from the right side of the brain or something, where it explained like you have to convince this other part of your brain to let go. That's trying to organize everything and and you got to like let it, because it's in charge like 90% of the day. So I feel like these lists also help when I really meditate on it, it opens a whole new realm. But it's my left side of the brain that doesn't want to do that. It's like, oh yeah, we already know this. You don't have to meditate on this. These are obvious. So it's okay to have that reaction. That's it.
Yeah, but I don't know why it won't go in a presentation.
Oh, that's okay. They can all read it, right? We're not doing a presentation here. So these are the 6 disadvantages of not meditating on death. And again, anyway, we'll just read them right now. We won't remember Dharma. So remember, Dharma is that which will free us of suffering. So we won't remember Dharma if we don't meditate on death, because death is like a splash of cold water on our face. Even when we remember it, we won't practice it. Things get a little bit more, pressing when you have death sitting right next to you. So even if practice, we will lack pure intention. Our practice will be erratic if we're not aware of kind of like time and our limits of time. We won't make an effort to tame our minds, and then we'll die with worry and regret of what, I should have done. Any questions about those? I'm sure there's more, but those are a lot of them fall under those main categories. And you can just see how they build on it, one upon the other. Okay, and then the 6 advantages of meditating on death. And by meditating, what we mean here is familiarizing ourselves. So that's what the word really means. So you can meditate on death without being on the cushion, just walking around thinking about it. So the 6 benefits, which is probably, this is a really good antidote if you're feeling like, oh my God, it's kind of scary to meditate on death. It's actually really meant to help your life, right? So it instills meaning in our life. It disrupts delusions, which we can talk about that. Like, how does it do that? Inspires our practice. So that's, something we can bring in, we can recall and refresh at the beginning of a practice. It keeps our focus strong in the middle of the practice when we might be lagging. It helps us dedicate and conclude our practice at the end, especially if we're thinking about the continuity of mind and where it's going. And it allows us to have a good death. Another way of saying this is the 6 benefits of meditating on the continuity of mind. So, that it's not just this lifetime. But what it's meant to do is to make this life incredibly precious, and so that you are totally awake. You hear those stories of people who have a diagnosis and then they're just wide open, wide awake, thrilled with what time they have. It's like that. That's what the meditation on death is meant to bring to us. So a lot, it's tradition to kind of have these pros and cons. And I remember when Geshe first came here and he did teaching on patience. And so there were these disadvantages of not remembering patience and the benefits of remembering patience. And when we did the deep kind of meditation on it, then it really hit stronger in me. And I remember I walked out of there thinking, like, I can't wait to lose my patience, or to be challenged to lose I didn't want to lose my patience, but I was like, oh, what he was saying is, like, if you can see it rise up, that's when you have a chance to apply an antidote and actually expand your patience. When it's easy to be patient, people will say, oh, you're so patient. But if it's not any effort, it doesn't really feel like patience. It's something you've already gained, right? You've already have that kind of wealth of patience. And so then I got my wish, because it wasn't that long before. And the thing is to always start with something, manageable, because I think we have success with something when we start with something that's going to give us guaranteed success. So I was trying to keep my eyes open for something that would be manageable, not like, I don't want to start at the Superdome, or Super Bowl. I want to start with something manageable, practicing. So that night, my dog woke me up to go out, and I love my dogs. I took her out. Then like 20 minutes later, she did this again, and I was like, okay, this is like. And then it was a third time, and I was like, okay, now when those meditations are going to help me, and they totally did. Because I remember one of the disadvantages of losing your patience was the event had already happened. It's kind of like crying over spilled milk, right? It had already happened. So getting angry was not going to accomplish anything, particularly in this situation. I'd already been woken up. My dog needed to go out, or something was going on. Wasn't going to solve anything to like scold her. And so I went outside and I just like looked up at the stars, and I just felt so at peace. I'll never forget that moment. And so I'm not sure the equivalent here, except that's your homework, to find out what's the equivalent on these meditations. When can you apply the awareness of death in a way that is beneficial, in a way that brings you peace, instead of like fear. This is the point of this is to overcome fear. So does anybody need to see those 6 things again? Would that help to bring them back up? Just let's review, especially the benefits. So interrupts delusions. Anybody have any ideas about how it does that? Give me a delusion.
Thinking that we're not going to die, or so a delusion would be like, oh, I think I'm going to outlive, my mother, for instance.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a delusion.
Yeah. I take it also to mean, it could mean like when I talked last week about the Carlos Castaneda books, and how his teacher was always telling him to use death as an advisor, as though death is sitting right there. So that then if death is your advisor, and say like, there's this person at my job who for a long time was like, really felt like she was out to get me, just talking trash about me. If I bring death into that moment, it changes it a little bit for me, because I'm not so intensely, wedded to this discussion, this argument. I'm not, it just puts it all into perspective. Like, not just, can I not tell when I'm going to die? I mean, we're all going to die. And so then both of our deaths are sitting in the room. I do not want, if this was my last meeting at my job, this is not what I want to be having going through my mind. So in that way, it will diminish your delusions. Like, is this really the last way that you want to be in this life or feel or whatever? So it will definitely do that. All right. And so, yeah. Oh, anything else? Anybody else? No, I think everybody's good. Okay. So I'm going to play a little clip because, yeah, hopefully we're going to play this little clip. I'll introduce it first so you can take your time setting it up. So I love Bob Thurman. He's such a goofball and such an amazing mind. So we're just going to watch like 10 minutes of this clip where he's talking about death and dying. He has so much knowledge. So we're coming in like 20 minutes into it. I think he's starting to talk about the bardo, which he says has been mistranslated a lot in English. We talk about it as the intermediate state. He prefers, I get his point, to just call it the between. So we typically refer to bardo as the between lives, the state between lives. But he's saying also there could be between anything. There's all kinds of bardo states. The state before you walked in this class, the state between waking and falling asleep, or vice versa, or the state between mood. It's just that right now we're not at any solid resting point. We're all what they call migratory beings. At any rate, you'll hear him talk a little bit about that, and he might talk a little bit about these lights. And what he's talking about is, we're going to go through this next week, is the death dissolution process. And at the very end of that death dissolution process, one of the signs, one of the things that consciousness sees are these lights. And so he talks about not being afraid of that, and how we can practice now in this life to reduce our fear and to be comfortable in that process of letting go. So when he's talking about letting go, that's, keep it in context. There's certain things that you don't want to let go of necessarily right now, but we'll apply it to daily life later. But he's talking about how to use our everyday experiences to prepare us for death in a positive way.
So, Dawn, I'm going to share the video, but it's going to take up my whole screen. So if you can't hear it, can you unmute yourself, Dawn, and let me know? Thank you.
Yeah, 2020.
Your totem animal, but it'll be bright and it'll be a little bit scary, and therefore you should learn to let go. Even not only let go with the view that you're going to be nothing, that's a level of courage, that's good. But the next level of courage is let go even if it seems like something a little bit dangerous or dazzling. So you just let yourself go into that and just give it up, kind of. Don't defend, open anyway. And then you'll find, instead of being eaten by the dragon that's charging at you, you go right through the dragon's mouth into a field of roses. It changes totally. It's like a dream where you can change from negative to positive if you don't give in to fear. That's the key thing, So that's the first thing of this last third category of helping people to cope with the after-death possible experiences. And it's just to go to the bright, go to the brilliant, go to the being that you think of as safe, and let yourself go even if it seems a little powerful to you or scary or whatever. Never go, don't be seduced, in other words, by some little hideout, and don't run away, and let go of fear. Try to let go of fear. And actually, if you've been going even into nothing in a regular hospice without the Tibetan science to help you, but if which is a majority of these things, going into being nothing is also a courageous thing. Just to let go and let that take a hold of you. It's not nothing that you see, but it's kind of giving up seeing things. That's also courageous. So you're in the right vein if you're being helped to do that. But then if there happens to be a big, bright, explosive, you think like you're floating into the sun or something, just float in there and it won't burn you. It's the key point. Nothing can harm you. It's like in a dream. You can dream being burned in a fire, but then you wake up and there's no blister. So training in dreams is very important, as you'll see. But anyway, so then the third thing is now what we're going to do in the rest of this talk. And that is, how do you use time in life to become more fully aware of things? And there are two things that I do there. And the first is to introduce you to the 6 betweens, so that you begin to realize that right now in life you're in a between. You're in a between when you're having an argument with your loved one and you're right and he or she thinks she's right or he's right, and you're having a fight and you're getting angry, etc. And the between there is you let go being right. You give it up. You, like they say in the hip-hop world, give it up, meaning clap for the other one. Just let go. Don't try to hold your place hard. Just let go. That's great training. Let go your anger. Don't act it out. Don't act out your righteousness. Even your right, let go. That doesn't change your being right. If you're confident, really confident, you can let go. So those are all betweens, kind of betweens. The between skill comes from that kind of life. When you're generous, you give a gift, something you value, $10, you give it away. You let it go. That is subliminal training for letting go. For either into nothing, in case that's the reality, or into the glorious light road, the yellow brick road, into heaven, into the heart of enlightened beings, into the heart of savior beings, whatever your religion may be, or whatever your worldview, whatever your nature view is. Okay? So now, first between, we're right here together in it. Hey, now when I'm reading the root verses of the 6 betweens, which is a preparatory kind of prayer of the book of natural liberation, not the book of the dead, book of the living. Hey, now when the life between dawns upon me, it's dawned upon us, because we're changing all the time. We're in the life between. We've been born, and then we adopted this and that personality, and then we learned this and that, and then we had this and that experience, and then we changed and changed and changed. And we saw this and that movie, and it changed us. We saw that work of art, it changed us. We had that relationship, it changed us. We're always changing, because we're in the life between. I will abandon laziness, as life has no more time. And that we get from meditating on the imminence of death, in the sense that, look, we drive down highways at 75 miles an hour. Whoops, 65 miles an hour. And we're only 3 feet from an oncoming, rushing truck that could leap over the dividing line. Or we could have a moment of carelessness and bang, we'd be finished. So life is that fragile. So there's no more time. So live every moment. If you really understand this is a life between, you live every moment as if it was the last. That means you want quality moments. You want to be in the moment. You want to be loving in that moment. You want to be loved in that moment. You want to know that your loved one knows that you love them in that moment. You want to have quality living. You don't want to just be living on a production line, being somebody else's robot. And then later you go home and have a moment of quality time, but by that time you'll be so exhausted, you'll anesthetize yourself with 3 beers and the commercials and the news, and you'll be terrified and dissatisfied. Which are the meditations of the TV, frightened and dissatisfied and greedy. Those are what two states they try to cultivate in you. The TV people who own the TV broadcasting. So I will abandon laziness, as life has no more time. Unwavering, I will enter the path of learning, thinking, and meditating. I will try to develop the knowledge of the real meaning of the moment, which is joy, bliss, love. That's what it is. That's what the moment means. That's how you want to be in the moment, if it's your last, for sure. You don't want to be frightened. You don't want to be angry. You don't want to be dissatisfied. You want to give everything to that moment. That's what you want to do. and taking perceptions and mind as the path. I will realize the three bodies of enlightenment. That is to say, I'll realize my oneness with the greatest beings in the universe. The Buddhas, the gods, the saviors, the savioresses, the goddesses, the Buddhesses. I want to be one with all of them. And they have three bodies. That's a theory. You don't need to worry about it. We don't have time. This once that I have obtained the precious human body is not the time to stay on the path of distractions, of just diverting myself and distracting myself. It's not the time, okay? So that is now, you're living as a between. And we are living in the life between. And once we live in the life between, we will be much more fully alive. It's like we'll become, I love this slogan of mine, actually. We will become the dying live, no longer the living dead. How's that? By letting yourself die each moment, letting go of the previous moment. No, I'm not pissed off anymore. No, I'm not dissatisfied anymore. If everything I want is right here, if I only can see it, if I have the wisdom to know it. And I'm therefore going to devote myself to knowing that, and knowing that my beloved, my love for him, her, it, they, planet Earth itself, is the meaning of this moment. That's what it is. Hey, now so that's the first between, okay?
Okay. Yeah, we'll catch some more of Robert Thurman later. But I like his point that, I mean, he's riffing off of the whole continuity of consciousness that we talked about and letting go of the moments that have just passed, how to kind of use the moment, be in that moment, and then what is the whole goal? If people are coming to him and asking him, how can I have a good death? It's how you have a good life. If you can have those things in the moment, using death as like your advisor, then the chances are that you will have a good death because you've already practiced it all of that way. Any thoughts or questions? Yeah.
And if you are on Zoom, you can do the little raise your hand. If you're on YouTube, you can put your question or comment in the chat.
So if you're living your best life, you're having a good life, you're enjoying every moment, would you then not be afraid of losing those good moments upon death? Wouldn't that deter you from a good death?
That is why we meditate on the continuity of mind. But yes, if you felt that this was it, that it's only this life, then yeah, you would be afraid there's nothing, you're going to go into nothingness and you're just going to lose this. Although there are people who still have a calm death, though, and that's what he was talking about at the beginning. Like, that's also brave. If you think there's nothing and you let go into nothing, that would also be very brave. But yes, I think that could foster more attachment because it's just this, and so, there's a lot of meditations we can do to help us look at, well, what is my mind a stream of consciousness? Does it continue, or is this it? So last week I showed this photograph of I guess it was the East River or something between two buildings. And I use this for myself when I'm kind of doubting continuity of mind. That if I just had that view, I was born with that view, I'd never seen anything except this water between these two buildings, I might think it was a lake. That looks like a lake. Everybody's telling me it's a lake, it's a lake. But then if I meditated or watched it or just, paid attention, I might see the water's always moving in one direction. I might see things coming and going to the other side of it. And there might be more things that would start to help me realize it's more than a lake. I might not have that view of it at that moment, but I know there's another type of Bob Thurman where he's saying, he hears this a lot from people, that you can't prove that there's reincarnation. You can't prove continuity of mind. But that same logic they're not applying to nothingness. You also can't prove there's nothingness. Has anybody proven it? Has anybody have anything even close to proof? In fact, there's actually a lot more study to prove reincarnation and to prove continuity of consciousness. So there's way more evidence on that side than there is on the side of nothingness. I mean, I'd love to hear some arguments for nothingness. I would, because I think that would help the conversation. So even if you want to play devil's advocate, that would be an interesting conversation. So feel free. There was something that Rabina had said about it, but I know, like, you know, I think one of the things Rabina has said is, like, she came in, she said she was born angry. She was like a really angry little kid. She goes, that came from something before this life. You know, children come in with really different temperaments, really different sets of skills. I was listening to this 7-year-old musical prodigy. You know, nobody in his family plays, you know, the piano. Nobody was interested in it, but he just kind of went to town. Where did that come from? So then people will sometimes answer that it's completely random how these traits and talents and other qualities fall onto a person. Yeah, I mean, that's a view that people have, that it's completely random. Adam, just don't want to debate myself, so. Yeah, go, you have another?
Well, I've got one.
Yeah.
I think I'd read somewhere that the human mind is so complicated that it's difficult to put all those thoughts into one lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why humans have created multiple lifetimes, heavens, someplace to go afterwards, because the mind would be, I guess, extremely disappointed if this was it.
Uh-huh. Well, even without being complicated, I could see why that would be disappointing if this was just it. You'd think if we thought if this was just it, we would do such a better job.
That's a good point.
But maybe not. I mean, everybody's going to be different going down on the Titanic, you know. Yeah, I've heard the argument. Yeah, we create certain stories, and so we create a story for an afterlife because it's scary to think of. And I mean, there's something in this tape, I'll have to find it for next time, where Thurman talks a little bit about that. I'll bring some more stuff that he says about nothingness. Because he says, yeah, absolutely, it would be very, very frightening if we felt like this was it. He then talks, and this is where it gets way more complicated, but if you've been coming to the center, I'm sure you've heard people talk about the two truths and relative truth versus ultimate truth. And so the absolute self, where we feel like this is it, this is me, I'm definitely this, versus so you're holding on to this self as being very absolute and concrete. And if that was true, that would be very frightening. That would actually be, you know, more frightening than nothingness. But so this is why there's a lot of, I mean, it's way too complicated to talk about in a few minutes, but this is why the meditations are done on what's called emptiness, you know, the absence of that. And why the whole kind of foundation of Buddhism is that things arise out of causes and conditions. So that's that river. What's propelling that river? If I just think of it, it's a lake, okay, maybe there's something coming from, I don't know, maybe the rain fell in there one day. But if there's this river and I try to find the source of that river, it's just impossible. I mean, I can find, okay, here's where the Mississippi starts. Is that really where it starts? Just like, and we're going to do a meditation on this in a minute, but can you really find where something starts? Just take the coffee you're drinking in the morning and just do a little meditation on all the things that had to come together to that coffee in your cup. The people who harvested the coffee beans, their families, their lives. I mean, just enormous amount of things had to come together for that one coffee cup. And we can't really find the beginning of that sequence of events. I can go all the way back to what? The Big Bang, and we come up with that as the answer to everything. A Big Bang, as though out of nothing, there was a Big Bang. Whereas instead of, you know, what I've heard like other physicists and the Dalai Lama talk about is it's a sequence of Big Bangs. It can't just be nothing created a Big Bang. So anyway, the meditation on that unfindable beginning helps us diminish this feeling that this is it. It can feel so finite because our memories only go so far, right? Although for some people that's not true. Some little kids come in with all kinds of other memories that have been proven to be frighteningly accurate. So we can apply some other things from Buddhism to help us, to help counterbalance that idea that this is it, that this is it. And then this meditation we're going to start to do next week is on the death dissolution states, because there's like 10 different balls we're juggling here. And one that I think we need to keep coming back to is this thing of nothingness, because then if that's a really heavy ball, all the other ones don't even matter, right? So we'll keep coming back to that. But some of the other ones that we got going up in the air too is our confidence about what happens at death. How do we prepare ourselves for that? How do we navigate that whole process? How does it launch us forward into the next state? Because we know that one thing leads to another, that one moment of consciousness leads to the next moment. You know, that was part of the homework. It was to try to trace different things that came up in your mind throughout the week. Like, oh yeah, why am I thinking about this weird commercial? Oh, because of that, and because of this, and because of that. And so, where was I going with that? Okay, so yeah, so the other ball is to really try to get comfortable with this process so that we can, you know, like I said last week, we're the keepers of the river of our consciousness in this life. You know, this being that I am identified with, I am the keeper of this river. So I can clean up the stuff that I have inherited, and I can put things into my stream of consciousness to propel it in the right direction. And that gets more and more important as I get older. But death is our advisor no matter what our age. So being motivated to work with what I have and work with that river as much as possible in this lifetime, in my view, is only going to help the direction of where it flows next. And so one of the scariest things, we can't remember any dying experiences before, right? We go to sleep every night. We don't even really remember that. We go to sleep. How many times have you gone to sleep? And yet if I asked you, okay, what was that like? Do you remember when you went through all the stages of going to sleep? No. So doesn't mean it didn't happen. And then your stream of consciousness continued that whole way. And sometimes you remember your dreams and sometimes you didn't. Doesn't mean it didn't happen just because you don't remember it. Did you disappear? Was there nothing last night, even though you don't remember it? Was there just nothing? There was something and you were there, but it was a different consciousness, a different part of your consciousness most of the time was involved in that whole sleep process. So I really enjoy the death dissolution meditation that we're going to start next week, and it brings you through the different stages of dying. And like I told you, I memorize those and I meditate on them regularly. On a practical level, this helped me as I was helping my mother die. I could tell what stages she was in, and she was in one stage for like 2 or 3 days. You know, it could be 2 minutes or it could be, you know, a significant period of time. And so I kind of knew what to look for. I knew what to do. I knew what not to do. And it was very helpful to me, and very helpful, I think, in preparing her during those last moments. It also, you know, one of the things that Bob Thurman was saying in the very beginning of this, he was kind of joking about going through a dragon's mouth and everything. But what he's saying is we can use our dreams. I don't know if any of you have ever had a dream where you realized it was a dream and then the fear just kind of dissolved out of it, right? That's what he's saying, is like you can use it in your real, if you can do that in your dreams, fantastic. But you can also do it in your daily life. Like, what if you said, wait a minute, am I dreaming? You know, I try to do that all throughout the day, because then the next thing I ask myself is like, okay, if this was a dream, what would I do? I wouldn't really keep arguing with this person, right? I mean, if this was a dream, I'd like fly or something, you know? So I remember when I first read about this, I was in my 20s. That very night I had a dream, like this tiger was attacking me, and all of a sudden I said, wait a minute. I think this is a dream. And if this is the dream, I don't have to like do this. And so I just started flying, and it was like the most incredible thing ever. And I really thought, no, this is real. This is really real, because it's more beautiful than real life. It was so vivid. And so I landed and I started like hugging this tree and putting my hands on this tree, and it started hurting my hands, and I woke up. But it taught me that that's what he's talking about. You can take fear in your waking life. You don't have to do this at night. Take fear, whatever strong emotion is arising, and question it. Was this real? What do I want to do here? And if you can dissolve it, that's a little miracle. I remember, I don't know if it was Thich Nhat Hanh, I think he wrote this, that, oh, everybody wants to have these incredible mystical experiences. Try changing your mood. If you can change your mood, that is a fucking miracle. Excuse me. But that's a miracle. And that's the kind of miracle that once you feel that, oh, wow, I was able to do that, like I did with my dog that night, right? I did not give in to my impatience. That gave me some confidence in my ability to change my own mind. And if you can have it in these moments, that's what Bob Thurman is saying is the practice for death. Because then in that moment of death, whether you believe in something or not, you're going to have a much more peaceful experience. Much more peaceful experience, which if you do believe in continuity of consciousness, you have now just sent your mind stream off in a more positive direction. So that then when you're in the Bardo state, which they say is very much like a dream on steroids, and frightening things appear because they're just coming from your mind, you'll be able to recognize them as just, figments, and they'll dissolve. And that's the whole process through the Bardo. That's what he's describing. And don't be afraid. And then, go towards something more positive. You'll see how these other delusions and things come up, but it'll be like, going through those haunted houses when you're a kid, something like that. Any thoughts or questions about what we're chatting about? Okay. So we're going to do a little meditation. It's last week we took an idea that we had and traced its origins back. This time we're going to do a location. So we've done this, some of you have done this before, and if you've done it before, pick a different location. But so I used to lead this meditation when I was back home in New Orleans visiting. This is years ago. We did this meditation, and it's one of my favorites. And then afterwards, it's like maybe 3 months after that is when Katrina hit, and I was back up here, and people I knew had to just scatter all around the country, but they would write me. They said that meditation helped them so much with coping with Katrina, because now they were living in different places, and the city was so changed. So yeah, we'll talk about it after on the other side. So get into a comfortable position, check your posture, kind of refresh your intention, why you're here. You can use death as our advisor to help us refresh our motivation. Take some nice deep breaths. Try to center yourself. Feel yourself in your chair, on the floor, wherever you are. Feel your breathing. I want you to select a location that you're familiar with, one that you have seen over time, and take a look at it, walk around it, notice how it is right now, who's there, if anyone's there, what does it smell like, how does it make you feel as you walk around it. Look up and down all sides of this place. Okay, now I want you to go back in time a year. So last summer, what did this place look like? Take a walk around. Are the same people there? What's changed? Visually, emotionally, What's changed about this location, this place? I now go back to about 10 years ago and take a look. Who was in the place at that time? What was your relationship to this place then? Anything different inside, outside? The people, the feeling, the sounds. Now go back 20 years. If you weren't there, just imagine what it was like. Who might have been there? What was the energy, the feeling in the place? I want you to keep going back. Gradually imagining this place, what it might have been like. What might have been there the year you were born. Go back as far as you'd like. And now come back to the present in this location and move forward a year. Imagine next summer, what might this place look like? It's still unknown, so you can create anything you want. What might it look like in 5 years from now? Move forward to 10 years from now. Then keep going as far forward as you'd like. Try to notice as many details as you can. And then come back to the present moment. And slowly open your eyes. You put them into groups of 3. So I'm going to ask you to get into groups of 3, and we're going to put you in breakout rooms online, and I want you to share your ideas and your thoughts and how that was for you. From all aspects of that. We'll take about like 10 minutes to do that and then come back. And introduce yourselves and all that good stuff. Okay, same here. So you 3 want to be together there, and you 3, and Chris, are you Are you chatting? Okay, so let's, you can go with that. Yeah. Sorry. Oh. The closest one. So take 2 minutes to wrap up. Okay, and come on back to the group so we can wrap up. Okay, we're getting everybody back online to join us as well. I don't know, they must all still be talking. They have like 60 seconds to get back or something, right? Don't they?
Yeah, okay, 35 seconds.
Okay, well, it's a good sign. They're chatting away.
Like, uh-oh. Is that like X everyone out?
Yeah. All right, so any thoughts, little reports from,
It's like there must be some good conversation.
oh yeah, they're still going. They're in the in-between.
There's the bar.
They have 9 seconds left of the bardo. And as a new life begins, like it or not. They should all be back. All right. Welcome back from your bardo state, everyone on Zoom. That's exactly how it happens. You get a countdown, 60 seconds left in the bardo. Ding, ding, ding. All right. Any thoughts, questions, comments, revelations, complaints?
So if you're in here, just raise your hand, and Kurt now will bring the microphone around. I think you have, oh, Chris, if you're online, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute and just start talking. If you're on YouTube, which, sorry, you guys didn't get in a breakout room, but if you have comments or questions, you can type that in the chat.
I overheard some comments about dreams, so I just wanted to say, I mean, I've been a dream fanatic since I was a kid. It just feels like just such an amazing thing, even when they're scary. It's just like, it's just amazing that we have dreams. So anyway, what I do a lot during the day, when I remember, is I'll put some little mark on my hand so that every time I see it, I'll ask myself, like, is this a dream? Is this a dream? Just to get in that practice of it. And then I'll think, okay. And then I realized, instead of just having fun, like, as I can in my dreams sometime go, oh, is this a dream? And then I just start flying. Maybe I should do something more than just fly. Also, what happens is I get tired and I can't maintain that lucidity. But in waking life, I can. So I try to say, okay, if this is a dream, I'll say a mantra. Or I'll just try to do something like have some better thoughts than whatever I'm thinking. And so then I have actually been able in a dream to go, this is a dream. I start flying because I just love it so much. And then I'll say a mantra. And so that gave me so much like joy that I could do that. I haven't done that in a little while, but at any rate, Geshe-la said too that one of the teachings is to, as often as you can, to recall that this is dreamlike. And if you can remember to do that, that's huge, to be able to throughout the day remember. So I used to put a little timer on my phone to try to do that. It just kind of shifts how you are and how you think about your day, and is exactly what we're talking about and what Bob Thurman was talking about, to try to bring all of that into this moment. How do you want to feel? You know, we all want to be loved. We all want these things. Why can't we can feel them in that moment if we kind of wake up to it. So there's a lot of power in a practice like that, and it may carry over into your dream life. Who knows? All right, so hopefully that exercise was also a meditation on the continuity of things, of the planet that we live on, the things that we live in, that everything is a river. So there's the river of your house, or, if I break my glasses, which I did kind of, there's the river of glasses, that everything is constantly moving. It's not as solid as we think. And that just helps to also shake up our thinking a little bit and help us as our river is definitely moving along. So homework, there's lots of readings, I think, online, no? Okay. Do people need help finding them?
I did cover how to find the homework last week, but I'm absolutely happy to stay and go through that. If anyone needs that information, just let me know. But if you register on through the Kadampa Center website, you should get an email with how to access the course materials, and that's where all the readings are. So, but let me know if you need help with that.
And then the homework is to make a little mark on your hand once a day, or something like that, and a little dinger on your phone, and try to and just see what that does. If you do that for a couple of days, and just take notice how, it makes you feel. Then bring that experience back to class next week. And then we'll also next week start to do some of the death dissolution meditations, because I want to be able to help if you have any trouble with them or anything kind of comes up that's frightening, because that's not the point of the exercise. It's quite the opposite. So we'll start that next week. And we're going to say Shanti Deva's prayer as a way of dedicating our merit. So think about, it took you effort and gasoline and intention to get here or to log on to Zoom or YouTube. You had to set aside some time on a Monday night. So all of that is action that you took. And the very definition of karma is action. So you took this action and it's positive. You spent time sharing your ideas, listening to other people, listening to me, thinking about this topic. So now we're going to dedicate that merit so that it ripens in the way that's most beneficial to you and ultimately to everyone. And this prayer is, again, just like all prayers, kind of a launching pad for thinking about a way to dedicate that merit.
If you're in the Gampa, it's on page 32 in the Gold Prayer Book.
Or it's right up here on the screen.
There you go.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you, everybody. All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. If you do need to stick around, I can go through the how to access course materials. If not, then I will say good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, Heen. Bye, everyone.